Imagine that all your personal memories, all the major dates, all the noise and frenzy of our planet are nothing more than a single minuscule pixel on your smartphone screen. A lonely blue glowing pixel among millions of others. That pixel represents all the continents, all the oceans. It is every mountain and every trench. It is every living thing that has ever drawn a breath. All the billions of people, all the billions of years of geological history, it all fits within that one single barely noticeable speck of light. You don't notice that pixel until you look extremely closely. Its brightness is lost against the bigger picture. You could hold a magnifying glass up to study its shape, to see how it pulses. But the moment you look away, the moment you take one step back from the screen, it vanishes. It becomes indistinguishable against the backdrop of infinite blackness. And here is the terrifying part. To the universe, to the galaxies, to the cosmic web, we are not even that pixel. We are merely its fleeting shadow. We are the ripple that pixel sometimes casts. Prepare for a journey that will shatter your sense of scale. We are going to see how quickly the Earth disappears. We are going to realize that our concept of distance and time is a local dialect. The universe does not speak. We will move from the familiar to the utterly unthinkable to grasp just how small we truly are and what it means to live on this tiny, vanishing blue pixel. Let's start with what feels close. Look up at the moon. It's familiar, accessible. It is the constant companion of our night. We think of it as being nearby, almost within arm's reach. It appears large enough to block out the sun during an eclipse. But even this first shortest step into space instantly shatters our commonplace understanding of distance. If the Earth were a basketball leaned against a wall, the moon would be a baseball located at the opposite end of the court. It's not just close. Between them is a vast, chilling emptiness. An emptiness large enough, by the way, to cram every other planet in our solar system and still have room left over. This is our first test. Space is not dense material. It is nothing, and it is everywhere. This is the very first lie we must expose. Now let's make the Earth and Moon even smaller to begin our great journey. Imagine the Earth as a standard penny. At this scale, the Moon would be a tiny dime, placed just 2 feet away from the penny. This is our baseline setting. From this point, we start moving. Next, Mars. To fly there at this same scale, our penny Earth would have to travel 1 full mile. All this history we know, all our dreams of Mars colonization, lie across a mile of pure black void where absolutely nothing exists. And that is only the beginning. The years of Andromeda. Then, Jupiter. In our penny scale, the distance to Jupiter is about 4.5 miles. That's 4.5 miles of absolute darkness, where planets look like fine dust motes, and the only source of light is our sun, which incidentally, at this same scale would be a massive, glowing globe over 2 yards in diameter. 4.5 miles into the dark, just to find the next milestone. The further we go, the smaller our penny Earth becomes. The sun, which was just a massive globe, now shrinks from these outer reaches, turning into a bright but ordinary star, indistinguishable from 1,000 others. We have left our street, and we are now deep within a quiet, deserted neighborhood. And then we reach the very edge of our home, past the orbit of Pluto, to the Oort cloud. This is a massive sphere that cradles our entire system. This is our final gate, our last fence. But to reach this fence, we would have to fly not 4.5 miles, but tens of thousands of miles at our chosen scale. A journey that takes years even for our fastest probes. The Earth has already vanished into an invisible, long-forgotten grain of sand. And yet we are still in the foyer of our solar system. Our sense of scale, our habit of miles and yards, is now completely broken. We are ready to step outside the door. We have left the Earth behind, compressed into an indistinguishable dot. We found that even the nearest planets are miles away on our penny scale. But even grasping that cosmic void, is just the beginning. It leads us to the first true scientific dilemma: our isolation, our cosmic loneliness, and the absolute uselessness of our achievements outside of our home. All our lives we believed our home was a planet. But in reality, our home is the entire solar system. It is our small, cozy backyard. It seems immense. Its boundary, where the direct influence of our sun fades, is called the heliopause. It is not a physical wall, but an invisible membrane, a border where the solar wind yields to interstellar gas. Our fastest, most durable probes, the Voyagers, crawled across that boundary, a journey of decades. All of our history, all of our existence, is contained within this membrane. This is our town, and we have never left. But what lies just beyond the city limits? Our nearest cosmic neighbor is the star system Proxima Centauri. Its 3 faint stars, one of which hosts a planet. In terms of our analogy, we traveled tens of thousands of miles to reach the Oort cloud, our suburbs. Now we have to get onto the interstate, where the nearest town is not an hour's drive, but over a horizon we cannot even begin to imagine. To grasp this distance, we need a new measuring tool. We cannot use miles or feet, because the numbers become meaningless. We must begin thinking in terms that link distance and time. Enter the light year. It is not a measure of time, but a measure of distance. How far light, the fastest object known to us, can travel in 1 calendar year. Proxima Centauri is 4.24 light years away. That sounds simple, like 4 1/4, but it is just another example of how language betrays us. 4.24. What does that actually look like when our familiar units of measure break down? Imagine you are sitting in a very large library. This is our universe, our entire solar system. From the sun to the Oort cloud, our boundary is just one single bookshelf. You can easily reach any book on it. That is our home, our tiny island of order. But the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, is not on the shelf next to you. It is located at the far end of the massive reading room. Between your shelf and that other one, there is nothing. Just thousands of feet filled with quiet black void. 4 light years is that path, the path that light, the very definition of speed, requires just to cross the room. To understand the absurdity of this distance, let's return to speed. Light travels at 96,000 miles per second. There is nothing intuitive about that speed. We can picture a car moving at 60 miles per hour. We can picture a fighter jet moving at 1,000 miles per hour. But 196,000 miles per second, it is beyond our experience. If a beam of light could fly, it would circle the Earth 7 times in 1 second. In that 1 second, it takes you to say the word 7. Light has already gone around the planet 7 times. But even at this incredible absolute speed, it takes light over 4 years to reach Proxima Centauri. This place, the galaxy, is ruled by the speed of light. It is its law, its ultimate speed limit. But if we, humans, want to reach our neighbor, we cannot move at the speed of light. We are limited by chemical rockets and the laws of physics. We board the fastest spacecraft ever built by humankind. What is its top speed? 38,000 miles per hour. But even at that speed, reaching Proxima Centauri would take over 70,000 years. Think about that on a historical scale. 70,000 years ago, the Cro-Magnon man was on Earth. Humanity was just beginning to migrate out of Africa. They lived in caves, hunted mammoths, and barely mastered language. Imagine the entire history of mankind passing while you are aboard that ship, flying through the absolute darkness, just to reach the nearest neighbor about which we know. Next to nothing. This temporal gap, 70,000 years compared to 4 years for light, is our isolation. This is the scientific problem of our scale. We are separated from everything not by distance, but by time. This realization should cause vertigo. Our greatest achievements in travel are nothing. Our biggest spacecraft are just little paper planes, gliding along the edge of an immense dark hall. 4 light years is already an entire epoch, conquered not by our invention, but by a basic law of physics. And for us, the passengers, it is simply an eternity. This is why the solar system is not just our home, it is our island, marooned, in an ocean of space and, more importantly, of time. We are on the threshold of the galaxy, but the realization of our isolation raises a deeper philosophical question. What is the price we pay to reach the next star? The problem of interstellar travel is not distance, it is energy. To reduce the travel time to Proxima Centauri from 70,000 years to even 70 years, we would need to accelerate a ship to 10% of the speed of light. Physicists estimate that this would require as much energy as is consumed by the entire civilization of Earth in one full year. Imagine that cost. To simply send a tiny automated probe to our closest neighbor, we would have to turn off the lights in every home, stop every car, switch off every computer on the planet. We would have to sacrifice one full year of global energy consumption just to give that tiny probe a chance. And even if we did that, our probe would arrive at Proxima Centauri in 70 years. In that time, an entire generation will have passed on Earth. Technology will have transformed. Our probe will arrive with an outdated antique camera to photograph something that may have already changed. This is not just a scientific problem. This is a crisis of value. If even to our nearest neighbor we can only send a message that takes 70,000 years to travel, and the cost is the energy of a civilization for 1 year, then what are we? We are an incredibly complex, fragile mechanism, locked in its tiny backyard. We are a civilization that has just crawled out of the cave and found its backyard. We look at this yard, at our nearest trees, the planets, and see how immense they are. But the moment we look through the foliage at the neighboring forest, the galaxy, we realize our ladder is too short and our lamps are too dim. Because by leaving our star yard, we enter the sphere of the Milky Way. And here, the concept of neighbor stops meaning a close star. It begins to mean billions of stars and trillions of light years. Hidden behind a simple, familiar word, our journey out of our yard was staggering. But it was only a climb up onto the porch. Now we step onto the street, and what we are about to see will make even our temporal crisis with Proxima Centauri a comforting nostalgia. We have just grasped the price our civilization pays for its isolation. 70,000 years of flight to the nearest star. That was hard to accept. That was our crisis of time. But now, we must face the crisis of space. A crisis far more consuming, far more unbearable to the human mind, and one that will finally shatter our subjective scale of values. We have left our tiny yard. We are outside the heliopause, drifting in true interstellar space. Where are we looking? At the Milky Way. The Milky Way is our solace. It is the spiral disk we see every clear night, that majestic band of light. We are accustomed to thinking of it as our home, our cosmic continent. We know it contains billions of stars, but the word billions, like light year, is just another empty sound we cannot grasp until we translate it into something we can feel. Let's start with size. Our galaxy spans roughly 100,000 light years across. Remember that it took a beam of light 4 years to reach our nearest neighbor? Now imagine it takes light 100,000 years just to cross the galaxy from one end to the other. That is an eternity, even for light. To grasp this scale, we must completely overhaul our analog system, our pennies, our miles, even our bookshelves. They are all useless. Imagine our galaxy as a gigantic sand beach, a beach that stretches for 600 miles along a coastline. In our scale, that distance represents 100,000 light years. Now, find the solar system on that beach. The solar system, which once felt so immense and impassable, now shrinks to the size of a single grain of sand. A single grain of sand. And that grain of sand lies approximately 2/3 of the way from the beach's bustling center to its quiet edge. This is our location somewhere in the peaceful, not too crowded suburbs of a giant beach. Now grasp the crisis. This beach is not just sand. Every other grain of sand on this beach is not just a mineral. Every single grain of sand is a potential sun. Billions of stars, each one like our sun, and many far larger, hotter, brighter. Billions of potential planets, billions of possibilities for life, and all these myriad worlds All these billions of suns, and perhaps trillions of planets, they all fit on a gigantic 600-mile-long beach. This is where our linear method of measurement breaks. We cannot use the light year to navigate the galaxy. Saying 100,000 light years is like saying the distance from New York to Los Angeles is measured in inches. It is technically true, but utterly meaningless for navigation or for feeling the distance. The crisis deepens when we look at time. The light from stars, located at the far end of that 600-mile beach, has traveled to us for 100,000 years. When we look at the core of the galaxy, at its luminous heart, we are not seeing it as it is now. We are seeing it as it was when Neanderthals were still walking the earth, and much of America was covered in ice. We are archaeologists trapped in the present. When we look into the galaxy, we are seeing its ghost. We are seeing only its past, which may be radically different from its present. Some of the stars whose light we see today may have died long ago, exploding in supernovae. Their death occurred long before our ancestors learned to write. Yet their light, their specter, is still arriving. Thus, the Milky Way is not just a place, it is a time machine. But it is a time machine we cannot control, and one we cannot catch up to. We are forever trapped in the present, watching the past. At this scale, a paradox emerges. The further we look, the less real what we see becomes. Our solar system, our grain of sand, exists in a world that is, in essence, a hologram of the past. This mismatch between what we perceive, the constancy and brightness of stars, and what we know, their ghost-like nature and remoteness, is the crisis. Now that we understand how small our grain of sand is in the galaxy, the question is, what is next? We know the galaxy is made of spiral arms. Our solar system resides in one of them, known as the Orion Arm, or the local arm. We are in a relatively quiet place. But even within this arm, we are separated by thousands of light years from more active zones where stars are born and die. This silence has its price. We are in the galactic backwoods, far from the galactic center, where the density of stars is incredibly high, and where the most dramatic events occur. Imagine you live in a small, isolated cottage in the furthest corner of the 600-mile beach. You have your tools, your food, your problems. You look at the bright, shimmering center of that beach and see life booming. Stars are being born by the thousands. Black holes are swallowing entire worlds, but you are too far away to participate or even to truly understand what is happening there. This is what it means to be Earth. This is what it means to be the solar system. We are a tiny grain of sand, lost on a gigantic beach that is itself merely a ghost of the past, and one we can never truly reach. This crisis is not only scientific, it is existential. At the scale of the Milky Way, our 70,000-year flight to Proxima Centauri ceases to be a problem. It becomes an insignificant stroll. When the entire galaxy is measured in hundreds of thousands of light years, what we called eternity turns into a second on the galactic scale. This is the complete annihilation of our subjective scale of values and priorities. What is our place? We are not the center. We are not important. We are a quiet, dim corner on the edge of a massive, ancient, luminous disk, which is itself a living, rotating crisis of scale. And this is just one galaxy. But to fully grasp this crisis, we must consider it from the perspective of intellectual life. How many other civilizations could exist on our 600-mile beach? Billions of potential stars, each possibly hosting habitable planets. We should not be alone. The problem is that even if two civilizations exist, they may be separated by hundreds of light years. This means that even if we send a radio signal to a neighbor just 500 light years away, it will take 1,000 years to receive a reply. 1,000 years. That is the span of time between the fall of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance. The entire history of the Middle Ages is merely the time it would take for one conversation. Our dialogue with the galaxy, if it ever begins, will be an incredibly slow, ghostly whisper that lasts longer than the existence of many nations on Earth. This mismatch between potential many stars and reality, the impossibility of communication, is our crisis. The galaxy is incredibly crowded, but it is deaf. It is full of opportunities, but they are so widely scattered, they become unreachable fantasies for us. We are locked in our grain of sand, in our time. We can see the past, we can guess the future, but we cannot communicate in the present. And when we finally realize the full weight of this galactic loneliness, the biggest shock awaits us. Because our 600-mile sand beach, our galaxy is itself just a tiny drop in a far vaster ocean. The crisis we have just endured isn't even a continental crisis. It is merely an island crisis. We are ready to step beyond the Milky Way. And here we will see that loneliness is not our problem. Our problem is the annihilation of our scale. Let's look at the galaxy not just across but upwards. Our Milky Way is a disk, but it has thickness. Our sun and our grain of sand are right in the plane of this disk, as if we are glued to the middle of a massive vinyl record. But this record is about 1,000 light years thick. Why does this matter? Because getting out of that plane is incredibly difficult. Even if we could move at the speed of light, traveling perpendicular to the disk for 1,000 light years would take 1,000 years. And for our chemical rockets, it is an unimaginable journey. We are not just stuck on the outskirts of the beach. We are glued to its surface. We cannot see what is above us, because it takes light and eternity to get away from us. This means not only can we not communicate with other civilizations, but we cannot even truly see or study the three-dimensional structure of our own home. We live in a two-dimensional projection that appears to us as all of reality. The absurdity of the scale becomes physical. If Earth were a grain of sand, the black hole at the center of our galaxy, Sagittarius A, would be a gigantic, invisible sea urchin, located 400 miles away from us. Invisible, because it takes light 26,000 years to reach us from it. 26,000 years. That is more than 3 times the existence of the Egyptian pyramids. We are observing a catastrophe that occurred when the first settled civilizations were just forming on Earth. The center of our galaxy is a historical monument that we only see with enormous delay. And here's where the galaxy delivers the final blow to our scale of values. We spend billions of dollars and countless hours studying our climate, our politics, our wars, which last decades. But the galaxy operates in millennia as the minimum unit of change. We are trying to measure the ocean with a cup. Our present does not exist. When we look at the center of the galaxy, we see what was 26,000 years ago. When we look at our nearest neighbor, Proxima Centauri, we see what was 4 years ago. When we look at the sun, we see what was 8 minutes ago. And only when we look at our hands do we see the present. The galaxy teaches us that the present is just our local delusion. The larger the scale, the deeper we plunge into the past. And this mismatch between our tiny, instantaneous real present and the majestic but outdated past of the galaxy is our final crisis. We are stuck on a grain of sand, in a phantom world where all our measurements of time and distance turn to dust. And when we finally realize the full weight of this galactic loneliness and this temporal crisis, the biggest shock awaits us. Because our 600-mile sand beach, our galaxy is itself just a tiny drop in a far vaster ocean. The crisis we have just endured isn't even a continental crisis. It is merely an island crisis. We are ready to step beyond the Milky Way. And here we will see that loneliness is not our problem. Our problem is the annihilation of our scale. We have survived the crisis of time and the crisis of space within our Milky Way. We accepted that our solar system is a grain of sand on a 600-mile beach, which is itself merely a ghost of the past, and one we can never truly reach. We resigned ourselves to our isolation. We accepted our place in the galactic backwoods, where dialogue with a neighbor takes an entire Middle Ages. We thought this was the height of our loneliness, that the galaxy was the final, impassable frontier. We spent thousands of words explaining its majestic yet empty scale, its 100,000 light years of quiet black void. This is where the tipping point begins. Because the biggest lie we told ourselves is that our Milky Way is unique. We considered our 600-mile beach a cosmic continent, the edge of the known, our final fortress of scale. But when we finally looked above the plane of our galactic disk, when we looked through the dim light of our beach, we saw not just emptiness, but something incredible. Located approximately 2.5 million light-years away from us is the Andromeda Galaxy. 2.5 million light-years. Stop. Compare that to the 100,000 light-years it takes light just to cross our own disk. The distance to our nearest galactic neighbor is 25 times larger than our entire galaxy. On our beach scale, it's as if a new, even larger beach suddenly appeared 15,000 miles from our 600-mile beach. A beach that surpasses our own in size and mass. What we are seeing here is not emptiness. This is the local group. Our Milky Way is a giant island, but it is not alone. It is part of an archipelago. Surrounding us are other islands just like it. The Andromeda Galaxy, the Triangulum Galaxy, and about 50 tiny dwarf galaxies that drift through this space like cosmic gnats drawn by our collective gravity. It's like discovering that your 600-mile sand beach is only a puddle on the wet shore of a vast, boundless network of lakes and rivers. Each puddle is a galaxy. We have just realized that our boundless galaxy is only a drop of water. Our place in the universe has changed. We are no longer a lonely island, not the sole continent. We are one of many. We are a member of a cosmic club, the local group. This scientific discovery radically changes our understanding of the forces that govern the universe. When we thought about scale within our yard, we were governed by the sun and planetary forces. When we thought about scale within the Milky Way, we were governed by the black hole at its center, the gravitational engine around which the stars revolved. But at the level of the local group, we are governed by something far more terrifying: collective gravity. This is not the gravity of one star or one black hole. It is the gravity of billions of stars, coalesced into one inescapable force. Andromeda, our giant neighbor, is larger than our Milky Way. It contains approximately 1 trillion stars, while ours has between 200 and 400 billion. Andromeda is a massive gravitational monster, and it is falling toward us. It is not just moving, it is speeding towards us at approximately 68 miles per second. On our everyday scale, that is incredibly fast. You wouldn't even have time to blink before it crossed half our planet. But on the cosmic scale, where the collision is 2.5 million light-years away, this speed seems turtle-like. However, the collision is inevitable. In about 4.5 billion years, our two galaxies will collide. They will merge, and the result will be a new, elliptical galaxy that scientists call Milky Way. In this moment, the last illusion collapses. Our quiet existence in the galactic backwoods is a lie. We are at the very epicenter of a gravitational drama that has been unfolding for billions of years. And we, our entire civilization, all our stars, all our planets, are merely passive participants in this inevitable merger. We do not control our path. We are puppets on the strings of collective gravity. Our greatest discovery is that the galaxy is not only not unique, but it is also not stable. It is not a static object we can study like a ghost. It is a living, moving, consuming mechanism. And in the local group, gravity does not just hold stars together, it unites entire galaxies, creating an architecture where our own home has no control over its destiny. This is the new crisis. We are not just isolated, we are condemned to merge. And at this level of scale, where billions of stars coalesce, our 600-mile beach seems insignificant. This is the annihilation of our scale in the context of a much larger, slower, and inevitable gravitational drama that has already determined our fate. We have accepted that our sand beach, the Milky Way, is not alone. It is part of the local group. This group is our new home, and our new, much more dangerous neighborhood. This neighborhood is not just static neighbors. It is a zone of gravitational warfare. The two largest galaxies, the Milky Way and Andromeda, are pulling towards each other across 2.5 million light-years of void. This pull occurs at a speed that is incredible in our everyday world. But in the cosmic world, it speaks of colossal gravitational mass. Let's return to the metaphor of the beach and the puddles. Our 600-mile beach is a puddle. Andromeda is a second puddle, located 15,000 miles away from us. Between them is uneven, wet ground where dozens of tiny puddles dwarf galaxies lie, either drowning in our puddle or being drawn into Andromeda's gravitational field. The crisis is that our puddle and Andromeda's puddle are moving towards a collision. When two galaxies, each containing billions of stars, collide, it is not like a head-on collision between two cars. It is more like two clouds passing through each other. The distances between stars are so vast that the probability of two specific stars colliding is extremely low. The stars will simply pass through each other like ghosts. Our sun will not collide with another star, but this collision will completely change the shape and function of the galaxy. Over millions of years, Andromeda's gravity will stretch and deform our disk. Our sun, our grain of sand, will be thrown into a new, unpredictable orbit. The result of this merger will be Milky, a massive, elliptical, seemingly lifeless galaxy. This is a new type of cosmic home, where gas and dust will be depleted, and new stars will be born much less frequently. But the true terrifying discovery of the local group is that gravity is not just the force that holds us on Earth. It is the cosmic builder and the cosmic destroyer. It is a force that acts over billions of years, and it has already sealed our fate. We, our entire civilization, are pawns in a gravitational game that will conclude in 4.5 billion years, which incidentally, roughly coincides with the age of the Earth itself. We have just realized that our island is not alone. We have also realized that this island is sinking, and it is sinking in an ocean of collective gravity. This crisis forces us to ask the deepest question about our place. Is our local group special? We know the answer. No. The local group is not the finale. It is part of an even larger structure called the Virgo supercluster. At this level of scale, our 600-mile beach, our puddle, and Andromeda, our other puddle, and all the dwarf galaxies surrounding them, they all merge into one tiny invisible bubble. This bubble is just one of millions that make up the Virgo supercluster. The Virgo supercluster is not just a group of galaxies. It is a massive wall stretching for 1,110 million light-years. 110 million light-years? Compared to this, our Milky Way is not even a grain of sand. It is an atom in a grain of sand. We are not just peripheral, we are infinitesimally small. The crisis of scale peaks again. We are not only stuck on an island that is sinking, we have realized that this island is in one of millions of eddies, floating in one vast flowing ocean. This ocean is the supercluster, and gravity acts here in a new way. It pulls not only Andromeda and the Milky Way, it pulls everything. The entire Virgo supercluster is moving in one direction, towards an even more mysterious and powerful gravitational center that scientists have named the Great Attractor. The Great Attractor is not a black hole, but a gigantic cluster of mass, located more than 150 million light-years away from us. Our entire local group, the entire Virgo supercluster, we are all floating downstream, attracted by this invisible, colossal object that we know ridiculously little about. We are like tiny chips in a huge river, and this river is flowing toward a waterfall. This is the climax of the tipping point. Our entire local group, our whole neighborhood is moving toward an unknown point, located hundreds of millions of light-years away. We are passengers on a spacecraft that is itself only a tiny cog in a machine controlled by a force we can barely measure. Our last refuge, our galaxy, turned out to be merely a passive participant in a gravitational ballet that spans hundreds of millions of years. We are not important. We are the backdrop to a much larger, slower, and inevitable drama. We are not the center. We are the periphery. We are a tiny puddle, pulled by an invisible, colossal force. This is the final annihilation of our scale, and this is the true crisis. And when we realize that even the Great Attractor, which pulls us, is merely one of the threads in an even larger cosmic web, we will understand that our journey into scale is only beginning. We just experienced the final shock of scale. We learned that our galaxy, our 600-mile sand beach, is not only non-unique, but is also condemned to a gravitational merger. We realized that our local group, Our tiny bubble is merely a drop in a current that is rushing towards an invisible center called the Great Attractor, 150 million light-years away. At this level of scale, where billions of star systems merge and entire galaxies move in a single inevitable flow, our former fear of loneliness vanishes, replaced by a far deeper existential humiliation. We are not alone. We are trapped in a system. Our fate is determined not by our actions, but by gravity acting across distances that our minds refuse to comprehend. Up to this point, we thought of the universe as a collection of separate objects, stars, planets, galaxies. We saw them as isolated dots, scattered in an empty black box. But we must now abandon that habit. We must understand that at the scale of hundreds of millions of light years, the universe stops being a collection of dots. It becomes a structure, the birth of the cosmic web. From a cosmological perspective, the universe is not just a uniform soup. It foams. It is ordered. This grandiose, gravitational dance, the movement of entire clusters of galaxies, pulled by an unknown force, forces us to see that the universe is ordered in a way completely different from what we are used to. Scientific simulations show us what space would look like if we could erase all the individual solars and see only the distribution of mass. Our latest crisis, the crisis of the Great Attractor, brings us to the reassessment. The Great Attractor pulls us. It pulls our Virgo supercluster, and it pulls millions of other galaxies. It does not act alone. It is part of something far more fundamental, something that formed in the very first moments after the Big Bang. Imagine standing on a hill at night and looking at a gigantic, boundless city. The city is so vast, you cannot make out individual buildings, parks, or streets. All you see is a network of lights, glowing threads that stretch into the darkness, connecting rare but incredibly bright nodes. This is the cosmic web. This is not just a metaphor. It is the new dominant model of the universe. The universe is not chaotic, not uniform, and not homogeneous at the largest scale we can possibly comprehend. The universe is a gigantic, three-dimensional, spongy grid. It is the skeleton of creation. This structure did not form by itself. It was sculpted from the primordial matter and dark matter, which makes up 85% of the universe's entire mass. It was dark matter that created the invisible gravitational scaffolding, which, like an unseen sticky network, pulled the ordinary luminous matter into this astonishing architecture. In this structure, there are three key elements that completely define our place in the cosmos, our destiny, and our new understanding of reality. Clusters. These are the brightest, densest concentrations of galaxies. They are places where the galaxy density is incredibly high, millions of times higher than in the voids. In our city metaphor, these are the brightest, busiest city centers, where all the main roads converge, and the maximum amount of light mass is concentrated. This is where galaxies collide, merge, and new, gigantic elliptical structures are born. A cluster is the center of a gravitational storm. It is towards such nodes that the Great Attractor pulls us like a vortex. Filaments. These are the long, thin arms made up of galaxies, bound by gravity and intergalactic gas. They stretch for hundreds of millions of light years, connecting the nodes. These are the illuminated freeways on the night map of the city, along which galaxies are constantly moving. They are the rivers through which the universe's matter flows, feeding the clusters. Our local group, our tiny bubble, is moving along one of these very filaments, and along these threads flows not only luminous matter, but also a cosmic web of gas, heated to millions of degrees. Our stars and our galaxy are merely tiny islands on this endless hot river. Voids. These are gigantic spherical regions that are virtually devoid of matter. They can reach 300 million light years in diameter. On the city map, these are areas of complete black darkness between the glowing road networks, where no road leads. Voids are not just an absence of galaxies. They are gravitational deserts from which matter has been entirely sucked into the nearby filaments and clusters. They are proof that the universe is actively dividing itself into light and darkness, into movement and emptiness. If our civilization found itself in such a void, we would not see a single distant galaxy in the sky. We would be trapped in absolute, unimaginable cosmic loneliness. We, our sun, our Milky Way, our local group, we are all just a tiny, insignificant part of one of these filaments. We do not live in the center of the universe. We do not even live in one of the bright, densely populated clusters. We are the periphery. We are the suburbs of this gigantic structured city, where the roads are paved with dark matter and the traffic consists of billions of galaxies. The idea of the cosmic web flips our perception of gravity. Gravity is no longer just the force of attraction between two bodies. It is the architect and the sculptor who, over 13 billion years, molded this luminous network out of matter, gathering galaxies into clusters, pulling clusters into filaments, and leaving terrifying emptiness between them. And this architect is not an ordinary force, but the invisible framework of dark matter that we cannot see, but whose influence we feel with our entire being. Our movement towards the Great Attractor, which we discovered in Block 5, now makes sense. We are not just falling into the void, we are following a long, invisible road in this web that inevitably leads to the nearest cluster. Reassessing our address, it is time to abandon the old, limited ideas about our place. Our address is no longer Earth, Solar System, Milky Way. These terms are too small. We must expand our identification to a scale that corresponds to the web. We are in the Virgo supercluster, but even that is too limited a name. The Virgo supercluster is only a region, a small piece that moves along with a larger current. To understand our true place, we must encompass the entire system of filaments that are attracted to the Great Attractor, including ourselves. This is a gravitational system that includes not only our Virgo supercluster, but also about 100 other galaxy clusters. We are part of a single gigantic watershed. This entire giant moving system of galaxies, which constitutes one enormous luminous thread in the web, has been given its own majestic name. This name translates our scientific journey from the realm of physics into the realm of poetry and ancient wisdom. That name is Laniakea. Our former address, the local group, was just a tiny entryway. Now we know we live in a gigantic, luminous, flowing structure. We are part of the cosmic web, one of the threads that stretches through the blackness. Our new name, our true name, is the Laniakea supercluster. Laniakea is a word from the Hawaiian language. It means immeasurable heaven, and this is no accident. Amazingly, it was in the language of the islanders, who always lived by navigating the stars in the ocean, that the perfect name was found for our new cosmic home. Our ancient wisdom meets our latest scientific discovery. We are once again navigators, only now our ocean consists not of water, but of the gravitational currents of galaxies, and our navigation beacons are clusters of matter, hundreds of millions of light years away. Our home is not solid ground, it is a navigation map. This reassessment is not just a name change, it is a paradigm shift. Scientists didn't just gather a group of galaxies that happened to be close. They were able to define the boundaries of this structure by movement, by the unified gravitational field that binds them all. Laniakea is not a location. Laniakea is a motion. It is the concept of hydrodynamics on a cosmic scale. Imagine a pool of water. You see the water being pulled into one central drain. You cannot see the structure of the drain itself, but you see the streams that carry the water towards it, causing all floating objects to move in unison. Laniakea is defined exactly like this. It is the entire basin of galaxies that flow toward a single gravitational center, the very one we call the Great Attractor. Every galaxy in this basin, like a wood chip, floats in a predetermined direction, and its own local motion, its rotation around its axis, is negligible compared to this great flow. Laniakea is not just a cluster. It is our cosmic city, our gravitational metropolis, defined by common collective attraction. Size: Laniakea spans 520 million light-years across. Mass: it contains a mass equivalent to approximately 100 million billion suns. Population: Laniakea houses about 100,000 large galaxies, including our Milky Way and Andromeda. 520 million light-years. This is a distance that light would take longer to cross than our planet has existed. Compared to this, our 600-mile beach The Milky Way is completely invisible. It has no scale. It has vanished. We have moved from the concept of an island to the concept of an organ in the living, breathing body of the universe. To truly feel this scale, let's return to the night city metaphor. If Laniakea is the entire illuminated megalopolis, then we, our Milky Way and Andromeda, are located somewhere on the dimmest, most remote secondary road. We are in its deep suburbs, in the furthest, quietest corner of the immeasurable heaven. Our sun is a weak lamppost on an unlit alley, and our entire civilization is a spark that cannot be seen from the central boulevards of this city. Laniakea is a system of flows. Our local group, our puddle, is flowing along with thousands of other galaxies in a single gigantic gravitational current that is moving at 400 miles per second toward the heart of the supercluster. This movement is not chance. It is a gravitational sentence. This movement is the reassessment. We are no longer passive observers. We are participants in the great flow, and we cannot change its direction. Think about this. 400 miles per second. This speed is several times faster than the speed at which the Earth orbits the Sun. This speed has remained unchanged throughout the entire recorded history of humanity. And the realization that our entire galaxy, our entire local group, all our billions of stars, are in a single predetermined gravitational current is the definitive destruction of the illusion of our control. We are puppets on strings, woven from dark matter, and we are moving along an inevitable route. This massive shift in scale, from island to immeasurable heaven, triggers a crisis of meaning that swallows the previous crisis of value. Before we underwent the crisis of value, we understood that we are infinitesimally small in space. Now we undergo the crisis of meaning. We understand that our efforts are insignificant in time and in the flow. What does it mean to be a grain of sand in a puddle, which is part of a huge flow, which flows in the web? But is it not itself part of something much bigger? It means that local events, our wars, our elections, our national crises, our personal victories and tragedies, have no bearing on our cosmic destiny. Our fate is determined by gravity across hundreds of millions of light years. We are part of a gigantic flowing system, and our local problems disappear like ripples on the surface of the river that carries us toward the attractor. Our greatest achievements on Earth, whether it's building pyramids or flying to the moon, cannot change a single meter in this current we are in. We are no longer isolated, and we are no longer lost. We are defined by gravity. We are part of the immeasurable heaven, and this knowledge is simultaneously liberating and humbling. It is here, at the center of Laniakea, that the very great attractor that pulls us is located. It is not just a name, it is a gravitational anomaly. We only see it through a veil of cosmic dust and stars, but its gravitational signature is felt across hundreds of millions of light years. The problem is that this attractor is hidden behind the zone of avoidance, an area of our own Milky Way obscured by dust. We cannot see it with optical telescopes. We had to use radio telescopes and infrared waves to see what is moving the galaxies, rather than what is there. We know that this mass is equivalent to tens of thousands of Milky Ways, concentrated in one region. It is the invisible mayor of our cosmic city, who determines the movement of all its roads, but whose face we will never see. Worse, we don't know what colossal mass generates this force, and we cannot fully measure it. We simply feel its inevitable pull, like sailors being drawn by an underwater current. This leaves us with one final, deepest question before moving to the philosophical culmination. If our Laniakea, the immeasurable heaven, is our sit, what lies beyond its borders? Laniakea itself is merely one of millions of such filaments and nodes in the observable universe. It is only a single gigantic spiderweb. Our cosmic city borders other, equally grandiose structures. There are other far larger cities. There are other far brighter superclusters, such as Perseus Pisces or Hercules. They are all woven into a single colossal network, one cosmic web that stretches for billions of light years. These structures move relative to each other, vibrating and dancing in a slow, cold waltz. The true reassessment here, we humans on planet Earth, living on a tiny beach called the Milky Way, we have finally found our cosmic address. But this address is not the endpoint. It is merely a signpost on a map that is infinite. Understanding this cosmic web is not the end of our journey. It is only the realization of how complex and structured our home is. We are in the suburbs. We are floating downstream. We are part of the immeasurable heaven, and this immeasurable heaven is merely one thread in the greatest, darkest, and most incomprehensible architecture imaginable. We have journeyed through the immeasurable heaven. We saw that our home is not just a planet, but a spark in the far suburbs of a city that is itself a tiny thread in the cosmic web. We discovered that our entire civilization is moving towards an invisible gravitational center at 400 miles per second. This speed, which never falters for an instant, is unattainable even by our most advanced spacecraft. The universe we now see is not a collection of lonely islands. It is a living, flowing, hydrodynamic system where gravity is not just the textbook law of Newton, but a force that determines the fate of hundreds of thousands of galaxies. Gravity is the great choreographer of creation, who staged this dance long before our sun was born. Our reassessment is complete. We know our address, and it is vast. Earth floating in Laniakea. But when the scale becomes too vast, when the numbers cease to mean anything, and the gravitational currents become inevitable and eternal, the deepest philosophical question arises. It is a question that has nothing to do with stars or black holes, but only with us, with our position in this flow. If we are only a tiny ripple on a gigantic river, if our existence is entirely determined by forces hundreds of millions of light years away, forces created by dark matter that we cannot even see, what does this say about us? Throughout history, we defined ourselves through borders. Borders between tribes, borders between nations, borders between our planet and empty space. Our survival, our conflicts, our identity. Everything was built on the concept of walling ourselves off from external chaos. Every new frontier we discovered, be it the ocean, the atmosphere, or the asteroid belt, gave us a definition. It told us who we are and who we are not. But now we see that there are no true borders. There are only flows. We are part of Laniakea, and Laniakea flows. All our barriers, political, cultural, religious, are shattered before this single universal gravitational sentence. What in that case makes us unique in this current? What gives meaning to our tiny, ephemeral lives? What makes us unique is the fact that we are the only grain of sand that is aware of the flow. We are the only particle in Laniakea that knows what Laniakea is. We are a product of this current, this gravitational waltz. We, creatures living on a tiny, damp rock, were able to track and comprehend the gravitational forces that shaped the universe billions of years before our birth. We were able to name this flow immeasurable heaven, using an ancient language born to navigate smaller, watery oceans. This is the greatest paradox of our existence. The more we expand the scale, the smaller our physical significance becomes. But the greater the significance of our consciousness becomes. It is an inverse proportion. Our physical insignificance is proportional to our intellectual grandeur. Our body is nothing. Our galaxy is merely a suburb, but our mind has contained Laniakea. We are, in essence, smaller than a pixel on the map of the universe. Yet we hold that entire map in our heads. We contained 520 million light years in one word, Laniakea. This paradox gives birth not to depression, but to a peculiar cosmic freedom. If our destiny is predetermined, and our local actions cannot change the great flow, then the burden of controlling the external world disappears. Our only field for action is the internal world. While the gravity of Laniakea determines our physical place, our consciousness determines our metaphysical place. We cannot control the attractor, but we can control how we react to the knowledge of it. This is the transition from active management to active acceptance. Our power is not in stopping the river, but in realizing that we are the river. This is not simple fatalism. This is a scientifically justified fatalism that paradoxically grants liberation. All our planetary conflicts suddenly acquire the features of theatrical absurdity. Our shared inevitable fate is determined by gravity. It will sweep us away, allies and enemies together. What then is the meaning of these local battles? Our true universal human legacy is not wars, not states, and not even cities. Our legacy is unified awareness. Our only task, as a civilization, is to map and understand the system we are locked in. Everything that divides us is merely noise against the backdrop of this grandiose, quiet current. We must replace our planetary identity. I belong to this country, with a cosmic identity. I am a luminous particle in Laniakea. For the first time in scientific history, the knowledge of the attractor has given us not a cause for panic, but a single reason for existence. Think about the voids we discussed earlier. These are black, gravitational deserts, reaching 300 million light-years in diameter, completely devoid of matter, stars, and light. This is 95% of the universe's volume, 95% of space where nothing happens, where absolute unbroken vacuum and cold reigns. We did not end up in a void. We live on a filament, in a luminous current that flows towards a node. This is not mere luck. It is the greatest cosmic blessing. It is perhaps the only way for life to arise at all. To create complexity planets, chemistry, and then consciousness requires the density of matter, heat, and the constant gravitational dance of stars. Life is an artifact of density, a product of being in the glowing rather than the black part of the cosmic web. If we had ended up in a void, our night sky would be absolutely black, and we would never have known about the existence of other galaxies. We would have lived and died in the illusion that our tiny island is all that exists. We would have been locked in absolute, metaphysical solitude. Therefore, our reassessment must be this. We are the light that ignited on one of the roads of this gigantic city. This is a vulnerable, rare light, born from matter that escaped the fate of being scattered into the cold void. What if our true meaning is not to rule a planet or explore the galaxy? What if our single cosmic meaning is to be aware? What if our duty is to record the history of Laniakea as we move in its current, so that this light does not fade without leaving a single word behind? While our galaxy sails toward the attractor at 400 miles per second, we sit here on this planet discussing or arguing about borders. Our conflicts, our joys, our achievements, all of this occurs on the surface of a rock that is part of an inevitable gravitational sentence. But there is power in this awareness. When we look at the stars at night, we are not just seeing ancient light, we are seeing our destiny. We see the cosmic web that pulls us, and we, for the first time, are not afraid, because we have understood the rules of the game. We have realized that our small boat is floating in the ocean by the current, but we ourselves have taken the map. This feeling is like a drop of water, realizing that it is part of the ocean. It does not lose its uniqueness, but it gains immortality in scale. Our galaxy is doomed to merge with Andromeda. Our civilization may not last another 1,000 years, but Laniakea and the cosmic web will exist for billions of years more, continuing their slow gravitational dance. And our consciousness, which managed to understand and name the structure, is a temporary snapshot of that immortality. Are we the voice of the web? Perhaps we are not just a random error of evolution. Perhaps we are the voice of the cosmic web that was able to speak its own name, to call its home the immeasurable heaven. We are that rare point where matter, carried away by the gravitational flow, was able to look back and see where it is flowing from and where it is heading. Our cosmic tragedy, our physical insignificance, becomes our philosophical victory. In this gigantic, faceless megalopolis, in the realm of silent gravity, we are the conscience. We are the mirror for the universe in which it first saw its own structure. We are the temporary bridge between the flow of matter and the awareness of that flow. This feeling, this awareness, this is our philosophical culmination. It is not a scientific conclusion, but a personal realization that should overwhelm us. It is the feeling that arises when you stand on the beach, watch the tide, and understand that the moon, which controls that tide, is itself a tiny passive participant in a far grander gravitational drama. Our place in the universe is not in the center, not on the edge, but in the awareness of the center and the edge. We are the only ones who can chart Laniakea, who can draw its borders and calculate its flows, and this makes us the most important object in the entire structure. regardless of our physical mass. We are the measures of the immeasurable heaven, its chroniclers. Our civilization is not just a community. It is a single organ of perception for our supercluster. So what does this say about us? It says that scale cannot destroy us. It can only define us, giving us a single universal meaning. And our only true immortality lies not in the stars, not in the matter, but in the understanding of the stars, in our ability to reflect this great inevitable flow. Our cosmic identity is not a place, but knowledge, and this knowledge is our last, strongest border. We stand at the last, most insurmountable boundary we have been able to map in our cosmic existence. This is not a boundary set by physical matter, not a barrier of stars or black holes. This is not a boundary of space, but a boundary of time. We have reached the very edge of our light, the edge of the observable universe. Remember, this is not the edge of the universe itself, which by all calculations may stretch infinitely a scale we cannot grasp, even in our boldest fantasies. This is the edge of our cosmic vision, the very limit beyond which light, carrying information, simply has not had time to reach us in 13.8 billion years of existence. This light horizon is our temporal signature in the fabric of creation. We can only see as far as light has traveled since the birth of the cosmos itself. Everything beyond that line of 46.5 billion light years exists. Out there in invisible real space, there may be other superclusters, their own Laniakeas, their own gravitational flows, their own attractors. They live their lives, perform their dance, but for us, that world is physically inaccessible and eternally invisible. We are trapped inside a bubble of light that we ourselves created by our history. Our knowledge is not absolute knowledge of the universe. It is merely temporal knowledge of our bubble. This realization gives birth to the first, deepest, most purifying emotion, humility. For thousands of years, we humans looked at the stars and thought, all this exists for us. We lived with the mindset of conquerors and dominators, as if the cosmos was either our enemy to be defeated or our prey to be exploited. We built our myths on the idea that we are the center of everything. But now, the science that gave us the scale of Laniakea has also given us our insurmountable limitation, our insignificance in the scale of space, and our finiteness in the scale of time. We are a finite mind, living in finite time, inside a system that may be infinite. And this is the great liberation. If we know we cannot control the great flow of gravity that pulls our galaxy at 400 miles per second, and we cannot even see where it flows next, then the heaviest burden we have carried since the beginning of time disappears. The burden of being the masters of the universe. We stop being masters and become passengers, attentive observers, and in this transition from aggressive control to profound acceptance, we find true peace. Our true final peace begins where our false planetary sense of control ends. The real purpose of creating our cosmic map is not to show how to seize territory, but to show where we are in the flow and to whom we belong in scale. We fought the unknown for so long, trying to force it into the boundaries of our momentary understanding. Now we surrender to a truth that is infinitely greater than our human aggression and our political ambitions. Our battle is not to push the boundary of 46.5 billion light years, which is impossible for us because it is not a question of technology, but a question of time we do not have. Our battle is to live honorably within the light that is given to us. Our task is not to see everything, but to understand everything we see, to bring this knowledge to absolute, perfect awareness. We must accept our place in the cosmic web, just as ancient mariners accepted their place in the ocean current. They did not try to stop the ocean, because that would be madness. They learned to feel it, read its currents, used the stars as a compass. Not as a goal. We cannot stop gravity, but we can learn to read its flows and name it, like immeasurable heaven. This humility is not weakness. It is the highest form of human courage, which requires the strength to admit that the overwhelming part of existence will forever remain beyond our perception. and yet to continue the work of illumination in our tiny corner. Peace is the knowledge that we have fulfilled our single most important role, the role of a witness who neither fled nor hid, but stayed to record what was seen. Our limitation, our temporal prison, is the source of our unique beauty and our undeniable significance. Remember, 95% of the universe's volume is voids, absolute blackness, where there is almost no matter, stars or light. If we had ended up there, in that nothingness, we would live in eternal metaphysical solitude, never seeing another galaxy, never understanding that we are part of something larger. But we were born on a filament, in a luminous current. Life is an artifact of density, the rarest, most fragile flower, grown on the roads of the gravitational city of Laniakea. Our value is not in our mass, not in our speed, but in our incredible rarity. We are the most complex, most highly organized object that could arise in this limited bubble of light. We are that single grain of sand that became aware of the gravitational dance of the entire system. We are the consciousness of the flow, and this makes us the most valuable thing in Laniakea. Our entire civilization, our arts, our conflicts, our great discoveries, our short ephemeral lives, all of this occurs on the surface of a single wet rock that sails toward the invisible attractor at 400 miles per second. At this scale, our local problems, our wars, our grievances seem absurd, but this does not devalue them. On the contrary, it elevates them. Why? Because this is the only place where this drama is unfolding. This is the only beacon of light in our part of the web. Our love, our ideas, our voice, all of this becomes a precious anomaly against the backdrop of cosmic indifference. These are episodic flashes of meaning in a world governed by the soulless, eternal laws of Newton and Einstein. This contrast between immovable law, gravity that does not forgive, and moving freedom, consciousness that chooses, is the key to our value. Our highest freedom is not the physical ability to leave Laniakea, but the ability to create meaning and beauty within the boundaries of our cosmic sentence. Our art, our music, our philosophical debates, these are a temporary song in the eternal silence of gravity. They are proof that not everything in this world is determined solely by mass and speed. We are, in essence, the voice of the web that was able to speak its own name, to call its home. Let's return to our limitation, to the edge of the observable universe. Our knowledge is just one brightly lit room in the infinite dark house of creation. We are standing at the doorway. We stand, breathless, on the threshold of our perception. The room we see is brightly lit. This is our mind, our telescopes, our discoveries, our experience. This is our home, Laniakea, and everything we have been able to measure. We know the geometry of this room. We know it is part of a house, but the doorway leads into complete, impenetrable darkness. We know that behind it lies the rest of the house, all the unseen billions of light years of the universe, the light from which has not yet had time to reach us. We cannot look there, because light is the messenger, and time is the gatekeeper. The gates to the rest of the universe open only with the passage of time, and we, as a civilization, do not have the time for that. This darkness is not empty. It is simply late. It is like waiting for an unopened letter sent 13.8 billion years ago. We know it was sent at the moment of the Big Bang, but it is still on its way. We, the current generation, will die before the postman arrives. Our duty is not to catch up to the letter, which is impossible, but to prepare the recipient, the future generations. Our task is to maximize awareness here, on Earth, to become the best chroniclers of our bubble of light, not to strive for what we cannot have, but to cherish what we do have. We are the conscience of our limited corner of the universe, and our main task is the transmission of this conscience. That is why our civilization, our unity, our peace, all of this matters. Because if we destroy this light, this beacon of awareness, if we allow knowledge to fade in local conflicts, then all of Laniakea, all of our observable universe, will once again become a silent, unconscious flow of matter that moves toward the invisible attractor. Our death, as a species, is not a tragedy for the cosmos. The tragedy is, if the knowledge we manage to gather dies with us. Our mission transforms into a relay race, a cosmic temporal legacy. We are the first runners. We will not see the finish line, but we must run our leg at maximum speed, carrying the torch of light and recording its history. We must leave behind a legacy worthy of being seen behind the doorway. We are the drop of water that realized it is part of the immeasurable ocean. This drop has gained immortality in scale, but it has not lost its unique shimmering form, returning our thoughts to our home, to our Earth. Imagine this single blue wet rock. It drifts in the absolute eternal silence of the cosmic vacuum. It does not move by its own will. It is pulled by gravity, a force without emotions. Laniakea is our destiny. It is our gravitational sentence that we have accepted. We can continue to argue about borders between countries or about words in a paragraph, but now we know that all of this occurs on the surface of a small illuminated island that carries us in a single inevitable current. And in this knowledge, there is peace. Peace from the fact that the biggest problem, the problem of our physical place, is already solved, and it is beyond our control. Our shared universal destiny is solved by gravity. Only one thing remains: to live. Let us live, aware of this beauty, this limitation, this rarity. Let us carry this light before it fades. Let us be worthy of our place in this great flow. Our cosmic tragedy, our physical insignificance and temporal limitation becomes our philosophical victory. We are the only thing that reflects Laniakea in ourselves. We are the only thing that calls it by name. We are the only thing that values it as home. And this knowledge of our place, of our flow, of our immeasurable heaven, this knowledge is our last, strongest frontier. We have reached it and accepted it. We have reached the peace that lies beyond our desire for control, beyond our horizon. And now in the silence, we look back at our single, fragile blue world. We look at it with a new understanding, with an almost unbearable love. It is not just a planet, it is the doorway to the awareness of the universe, from which we look out onto eternity. It is the place where meaning is born. And as long as this doorway exists, our mission exists. Our immeasurable heaven has no end. And what has no end for us?